Hello and welcome to the final part of Bricky's Every 40k Factions Part 2. I'm really excited for this section because we'll finally get to go through all the factions that Bricky talks about. So, yeah, thanks for joining this video and enjoy.
Clowns.
What's the matter, Andy? Don't you want to have some fun?
The Harlequins are a bizarre race of Eldar. They're demonic clown performers. They're like a weird mix of Sander Cohen from BioShock and Jin from League of Legends, but in a more clown theme. They're artists of death and perfecters of their craft. They do not belong to Craft Worlds or any of the weird
They do have some
Drukhari
pretty
people.
cool masks.
They guard something called the Black Library, which is this giant tome of never-ending knowledge deep in the heart of the Eldar Webway, and also guarded by their god named Kegorok, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He is the
Kegorok?
laughing god, but it's the Eldar's laughing god, and these are the Harlequins, the Harlequin clowns. These are Eldar clowns.
I thought all the Elder gods were
so
dead.
Imagine the things that an Eldar, these depraved individuals, would find funny, and this is the god of that.
God.
It's a horror clown. These are gods of horror for us normal people. For them, they're like, oh, it's so funny. They're all dying horribly. Honk, honk. They're very
Honk, honk.
bizarre and difficult to describe. They've escaped the ruinous powers of Slaanesh somehow, but their main thing is guarding that Black Library, and the Harlequins just... They're demon clown performers. They're barely any models on the tabletop. They're good in melee. They're demon
The paint
clowns.
job.
I'm not sure. I got a quote. It is too easy for an Eldar to embrace the obscene virtues of chaos, for Slaanesh is nothing more than a manifestation of the Eldar mind in its most wild and unconstrained form. Human morality is meaningless to the Eldar, and to the dark side of the Eldar mind, all life is to be expended at a whim. Cruelty and generosity are but the impulse of a moment. Beauty and sensuality are virtues that can be expressed in bloodshed just as easily as in song. To an unfettered Eldar mind, there is neither sanity nor madness, but merely a wave of perfect existence fulfilled by its own savage momentum. They're very strange. The Harlequins, Drukhari, Eldar, they are an anomaly
have cool
that
jackets
make
as well.
humans seem completely easy to understand in comparison. They range from rekindling their civilization to horrifying murder and also clowns. They're all over the place, but honestly, they represent quite well and are rather interesting, especially with the whole Slaanesh murdering everyone bit. So, yeah, Eldar. Now, bugs.
Ma, they following me, Ma.
Bugs.
Who followed you?
The bugs.
The bug.
The
bugs.
Tyranids. Now, you want to talk something a lot more fun, a little more simple than all
Yeah.
this crazy Eldar shenanigans? Let's talk the Tyranids. They're bugs. Do they look like Zerg? Hell yeah, they look like Zerg. You want to know why they look like Zerg? Because they were actually supposed to be what Zerg were. Apparently
interesting.
StarCraft was supposed to be a 40k game in the beginning, hence why they look so much like Eldar, Zerg, and the Imperium of Man. Like, kind of Space Marine-y, those Marines, huh?
Yeah.
That was a little bit Space Marine-y to me. Maybe. I don't know. You really fucked up on that one, Games Workshop, didn't ya?
Yeah, a little
Tyranids
bit.
are a giant infestation of unfathomable proportions. These are giant, extremely bio-advanced hive mind organisms that are basically all about absorbing as much biomass as they possibly can to evolve and mutate to be extremely potent and powerful and kill and eat anything in their path. They are probably the
Wow.
least evil faction in all of
Crab
40k
claws.
because all they want to do is eat shit. They want to nom nom the entire galaxy. They hangry and we food. Also, this Tyranid hive mind has a presence in the warp. In fact, Tyranids in their own right have a massive presence in the warp. They have a thing called the Shadow in the warp specifically, where when they are
I'm getting,
coming
like,
in
serious
to invade
Xenomorph
a
vibes
planet,
as well.
they have this weird ability to kind of cut off the warp on all the psychers on that planet.
Oh.
And how do you get help across the stars? Well, you need the warp because you need that for interstellar travel.
So you can't even call
with
for
people
help.
unable to call for help from the Tyranids, these are just easy pickings. And an entire giant Tyranid hive fleet comes out of orbit and just will massacre, absorbing all that biomass and turning them and all of their other Tyranids into even more advanced monsters. They come in so many varieties too, all based on what is important. Tiny little ripper swarms for scouting and having little dudes eat people up, to the Hormigons, Termagants, and Gene Stealers, all the way to the Hive Guard and the Exocrines and the Swarm Lord, to Hive Tyrants and their giant battle fleets, and even something as crazy as the Hierophant Bio.
Jesus,
the Tyranids come in all forms and sizes depending on what they require. They are extremely good at anti-biological weaponry.
They're really scary.
There's no way you could plague them or blight them. They have extremely strong armor, carapaces and such. Tyranids are nigh perfect organisms and are pretty spooky when it comes down to how they handle all of their genetic material. Keep feeding them, they'll keep evolving. They keep on creating new horrifying organisms to spread across the galaxy. And you want to know the most
so they just
terrifying
keep getting worse
part of the Tyranids
the further they go.
We might be surrounded. There have been around 6 or 7 Tyranid hive fleets. Behemoth, Kronos, all these different kinds of hive fleets. And they've all arrived in the galaxy from different points. Different sections of the Milky Way galaxy have had different Tyranids come through. And that is horrifying. Because as far as we know, we could just be surrounded on all sides by Tyranids. The only reason you may not hear a whole lot about Tyranids is because it's a little bit hard to have a bunch of story off of one hive mind genocidal monsters. All these giant bugs swarming in, killing and eating everybody and evolving. I mean, as cool as there are some cool characters, the Swarm Lord, Old One Eye, you can't really have a whole bunch of major character-based stories
so Tyranids have special characters as well.
As awesome as they are, they're simple. They want to eat
That's
you.
interesting.
They want to eat you and absorb your biomass. They are simple bugs. If you want something a little more complex, talk Gene Stealer cults.
I can have all the pot I want, I get around faster than walking, and wherever I need a seat, I can just sit on my balls.
Gene Stealer cults are a special brand of Tyranid that can slowly infect themselves into different kinds of society.
So they are a lot like xenomorphs.
They can rise up to where they all pray and believe in these regular humans, pray and believe into their Tyranid hive mind gods. And these brood lords and I think they're called patriarchs all can turn an entire world all based into Gene Stealers. And these are called Gene Stealer cults. An entire hive world of the Imperium can be turned into nothing but servants to the Tyranid masters just by infecting them and screwing with their genetic code a little bit. They also have this cool, like, Mad Max look.
Yeah, I can see that.
They are definitely one of the bigger threats to the Imperium besides Chaos. I keep saying biggest threat to the Imperium. They're up there, though, because you, dingus, stepped on a bug in middle school. Asshole. There is a cancer eating at the Imperium. With each decade, it advances deeper, leaving drained, dead worlds in its wake. This horror, this abomination, has thought and purpose that functions on an unimaginable galactic scale. And all we can do is to try to stop the swarms of bioengineered monsters it unleashes upon us by instinct. We have given the horror a name to salvage our fears. We call it the Tyranid race. But if it is aware of us, it must know us as nothing but prey. Tyranids, they're cool. But are they as cool as the orcs?
Yeah!
Screen's gone red! That means I'm super fast!
Orcs. I fucking love orcs. So, yes, the green monsters.
Everyone loves the orcs.
The green skins. These orcs, they are in fact a race in 40K. The orcs are as exactly what you expect them. They have archaic weapons, they're big boys, they have axes, and they have got big old teeth, and they want to kill everything, and there are so many of them.
They like to
The only way they're taking over the entire galaxy is to stop murdering each other. Orcs are so cool. Orcs don't have philosophy.
Cool, they have pirates.
Orcs don't have existential crisis. What matters is who's the biggest orc. You listen to that guy, because he the biggest orc. He big orc knows best. You win through the power of imagination.
Power of imagination.
Of all the races I have battled throughout the galaxy, the orc is the hardest to comprehend. They wage war with machines that should not work, care little for strategic gains, and are just as likely to slaughter each other as the enemy. How does one battle an enemy that defies all logic? As an orc, you're enjoying life. You're enjoying the life you're given.
They just
Your
love a
whole
good fight.
life and job and purpose is to get up and beat each other to death because you can. The biggest orc is the man who understands everything. He is the boss. And orcs have this really weird, like, big, dumb, stereotype British accent, which is just hilarious to me. Those are orcs. You fight. You like to fight. Your whole purpose is to fight. You wage war because you want to wage war. You got your boss over there, and you better listen to the boss, because if you don't listen to the boss will squish you and make you an example for the other orcs. And then you can't fight because orc dead.
Orc
and
sad.
Orc dead can't fight because the orc dead. Orcs. They scrap together machines out of parts that don't make any sense.
That's
and
some
because
definite
they
Mad Max
believe,
vibes.
They have the mental imagination that that machine will run, it'll run. If that machine's out of gas, you're driving that machine with your fellow orcs, and the biggest orc is behind the wheel, and you run out of gas, some orc behind you is like, oh, Zog, we're out of gas. And the big orc is like, no, we're not. I filled the fucking gas tank up earlier. And all the other orcs are like, oh yeah, you did do that. And then you turn the fucking mech back on, and it works again. Does it have gas?
The power of imagination.
Probably not, but it works. The power of imagination. They paint things red because it makes them think they goes faster. They paint things purple because it's the sneakiest color. You want to know why? You ever seen a purple orc? Didn't fucking think so. Orcs are also like ancient as hell. They're back in the Eldari.
Have you ever seen a purple orc?
Frame. But back then they were called Krorks, and they were much larger
Krorks.
and scarier and far more intelligent. Now
like
they're
bigger?
just orcs, and they're big, dumb, and they smack
How
things.
big can orcs
but
get?
They're pretty spooky. They're not very well armored, but they hit really hard, and it's called the Green Tide because there are so many orcs. There are about as many orcs as there are Tyranids.
Oh,
Maybe
damn.
more. Who knows? But they keep on, murdering each other, so it's not too bad of an issue. Orcs are entirely comic relief. Their stuff is slapped together that makes no sense. Their vehicles don't work the way they're supposed to, but they work because they think it works.
They
'cause
do look like
imagine
fun, I must
that
admit.
it works. Orcs care only about who is the biggest orc, and they will follow the biggest orc. And then if they want to be the biggest orc, they'll challenge the biggest orc. And then when they go and they issue a Wa is just war in orc, they murder everybody and everything in this giant tide of green orcs who are just excited to be hitting something. They don't care that they're hitting Eldar or the Imperium or Tau
what the
or
hell
anyone
is
in
that?
between. They're just so they get to beat shit up. That's orcs. And on the tabletop, they are a total coin flip, and they're really fun. I have never met a salty orc player. I have never met someone who plays orcs and is ever just a bad guy or that guy. Orc players have this kind of fun to them because when you play them, you are completely submitting yourself to RNG. So here's the thing. Guardsmen, Imperial Guardsmen, when they shoot, they roll a dice, and on a 4 up, they'll hit their target. They have a 50% chance. Space Marines, pretty good. They hit on a 3 or higher because they're
That
well
makes
trained.
sense.
Adeptus Custodians, they hit on 2s because they're just super well trained. Orcs, they hit on a 5 or higher. But if they roll a 6, they get to make another shot. With
A 5 or a
anything.
6, that's
From the
horrific.
dinkiest pistol to the biggest rocket launcher. It doesn't matter. Half of their stuff will blow up on a whim. One of their medics, if you roll a 1 to heal someone, you fuck up your surgery and you just kill an orc. They're so wacky and silly. But the thing is if you roll well, you roll high, and you keep rolling high, you are going to crush people. And if you don't, you lose. I mean, that's what you get when you play orcs. That's what happens when you play orc. It's a coin flip, which is why you can't be a salty bitch when you play orcs.
No.
Because things won't go
It's the
your
roll
way.
of the dice.
It's just the roll of the dice. You're playing a dice game. But if you're going to have fun and you want to be stupid and you want to be silly,
that sounds
you're
awesome.
Gonna play some damn orcs.
Yeah.
But on the opposite side of the fun part of this, let's talk about the Necrons. The Necrons are spooky, scary skeletons and very grimdark again. They have a much more fleshed out lore than before. Back in the day, they were just undead Egyptian space terminators.
I was
going to
say the Egyptian
but
theme.
they actually have a story. So way back in the day, you had the Necron tier. Kind of see a theme here: Eldari, Eldar, Krork, Orc, Necron, Necron tier. So the Necron tier were this race of generally kind of shitty people. Not because they were personally shitty, because their lives were awful. They were ill-fated to a horrible existence of like radiation and a terrible planet they lived on, and everything just really sucked. Being a Necron-Tyr was just really depressing. They really were looking for immortality. They were extremely reliant on the hope that they would eventually find the key to living forever and to stave off this horrible nature that they were thrust upon them, and therefore they could become the most dominant race in the galaxy. And they found this group. They're called the Old Ones. Imagine them kind of like the Forerunners in Halo or the Xel'Naga in StarCraft.
Oh,
right?
okay.
These Old Ones were these strong, pretty much omnipotent beings, and they, of course, knew the key to immortality. So the Necrons went to them and said, please, show us your ways.
Yeah.
And the Old Ones said, piss off.
Oh, no.
Not really. They were a lot more humble about it, but they did not want to share their secret
that's
of
so mean.
immortality with the Necrons. The Necrons, of course, took this very well and waged war with them, kind of under this united banner.
Yeah.
The Necron, different dynasties,
I imagine you would
didn't
be
really
quite
like each
salty
other.
after that.
But under this one man, the Silent King, he thought the best way to unite his race was to do this giant war with the Old Ones out of spite for them keeping the secret of immortality to them. This was known as the War in Heaven, and this is actually like a multi-stage war, because during this war in heaven, they discovered the Star Gods, a whole new race of people known as the Catan, or the Catan. These Star Gods were also very much like Old Ones, almost omnipotent beings, and they too had the key to immortality. And so the Necrons went to them and said, hey, can you help us fight off the Old Ones? Can you help us kill these Old Ones?
Oh, they teamed
you,
up.
The Catan. And the Catan said yes. And in fact, we can help provide you with the immortality you so desperately
nice.
seek. So the Silent King of the Necrons decided to make a pact with the Catan to allow them to accept this generous gift of immortality upon them. But this, of course, had been a horrendous trap, and
there's
the
a
Necrons
catch.
were dragged in chains to this biotransference where their flesh was stripped from them, replaced with nothing
that's how they
but
become
a
the
metal
skeletons.
hollow shell, as their souls were ripped from their body and fed to
Damn.
the Catan. And the Catan fattened up. They got chonk on the souls of the Necrons. As this was their plan all along, they consumed the flesh and souls of the Necron-Tyr and turned them all into unwilling robotic slaves just to serve
so
their
unfair.
will. And then, with their new-founded Necron army, they pointed their guns at the Old Ones, and the Catan continued their domination of the stars and their genocide, complete and full genocide of these Old Ones. The Old Ones did their best to stave it off. They even created other races, the Eldari and the Orcs, to try to fight off the horrifying Necron army and the Catan above them. But there was absolutely no possible chance for them. And the Old
just too
Ones
powerful.
were absolutely extinguished across the galaxy. Their entire race completely removed. Full-on 100% genocide. However, during all this, the Catan, so
He looks
just
cool.
infatuated with their victory, started fighting each other for fun, for sport, and for small differences. Doesn't matter. The Catan, with these overpowered people, they're going to eventually hit each other at some point. And as they began just menially fighting each other, the Eldari and the Orcs actually started pushing on the Catan's borders a little bit, giving them a little bit of a run for their money. And as this continued, this is when the Silent King, who retained his consciousness, decided to leap into action and start a full-scale revolt against their Catan masters. And this revolt was bloody, as the entire Necron army was surged off to destroy these star gods. They were able to, just after suffering horrendous losses, were able to turn the tide of the war. And they took these Catan and they blasted them.
They
Because
finally
as
got a
these
break.
star gods are unkillable, they were able to break them into thousands of shards.
so are they
and
in all those little
entrap them
pyramid
in
things?
giant stasis vaults to now actually be slaves to the Necrons. And with the Necrons having the entirety of their old gods enslaved to them, They realized that soon their race was about to be attacked by the overcoming new races, the Eldari and the Krorks. And so what they did is they retreated into giant stasis tombs in order to preserve their energy and their strength for when one day they would be reawakened and they would be able to rule the galaxy that was rightfully theirs. And then some dingus Adeptus Mechanicus guy diddled with a green console.
Oh, they woke
and
them
now
up?
the Necrons
No.
are back, and they see all these primitive
Damn
races on their
Mechanicus.
lawns.
Can't
and
leave
they
anything
say,
alone.
Get the fuck off of it. The Necrons are back, super advanced, and they are here to reclaim the galaxy that they so rightfully believe is theirs.
I wonder what the
Tabletop,
first thoughts of the
they're all like
Mechanicus when
that.
they saw these
Tons
things.
of undead Egyptian skeleton robots that when they die, they just get right back up because they keep on reanimating. Hard to kill, tons of crazy stuff. You can use the Catan
Oh,
themselves
wow.
as units to fight with. It's pretty cool. The Necrons are one of the three major events in 40K. The Horus Heresy, the Fall of the Eldar, and the Awakening of the Necrons are all pretty substantial events. And the Necrons themselves are pretty dang cool as well. Here's a good quote
Yeah, they are
from
pretty
a wonderful
cool.
Dawn of War game. Lucky creatures, as long last you have found the tranquility of death. I was like you once, clinging to life and blind to the truth. When I uncovered the truth, I too shuddered and paled with fear. Deep in these catacombs, I was remade. Here, my brethren slumbered for eons while the living grew like weed. My Lord knew this day would come. He had plans for us all. We would purge this world once more. So come, poor victims of life. We will grant you tranquility in these crypts. Kronos will be a tomb world once more. Necrons are also pretty smug. Trazen the Infinite especially, a little
He's stealing your
dickhead.
girl.
But speaking of dickheads, last race.
Last
Let's
race.
talk the Tau.
We made a fucking Wookiee.
The exact formation of the Tau Empire is not entirely understood. However,
Oh, no.
a long time
The
ago,
legs.
thousands of years ago, in the 40K world that is, some Imperial navigation vessels were going around through different areas, and they saw a primitive race, blue people, smacking each other with sticks and stones. They thought, nah, dumb Xenos race who gives a
Yeah.
shit, and they bailed. Then this giant warp storm occurred right in that major area, unable to be breached. Then, once that warp storm 6,000 years later subsided, hello, those little sticks. Well, they decided to actually have no war of any kind and all
they
just
all work
unite
together.
under one flag of the Tau Empire. And now they have gigantic starships and Gundam robots and lasers and railguns and mechs, and they are
It does
here
make you
to
wonder
rule
what
your
the other
day
races,
for
like the
greater
Imperium,
good.
would be like
That
if
is
they
generally
actually
the Tau Empire.
pulled it all
They
together.
have this kind of feeling of this homogenous group. All species can go
mechs.
underneath the banner
Oh, they look
of the
so
greater
awesome.
good. The greater good is their idea of the fundamental increase and help of all. In fact, they are most likely the most like the Covenant in
Yeah.
Halo, where they have the overarching prophets, being the Ethereals, who are actually kind of dicks and like to pull at strings a little bit.
Nah.
But then you have all these different races directly underneath them, and they all
Oh,
work
so
together.
they
in
actually
this big
work with
group
other
as
races.
this large, foreboding race that tries to spread their weirdly pseudo-religious influence across the galaxy. The alien is not intrinsically evil. Do not hate him. Pity him, his ignorance. Seek to understand his differences and equate him with his inadequacies. Only then will he accept his place in the greater good. That is
I mean,
generally
it
the Tau.
makes sense if
And
you
you're
find a
kind of
useful
wondering, like, what their
race
mainly
you can
big
integrate
shtick
into
is.
your
Well,
own.
they're all about big robots and mechs. They
Yeah.
have laser rifles and rail guns. They got giant mechs with tons
Wow.
of missile pods and heavy rail rifles and rail guns.
That is
and
a
burst
lot of
cannons
weaponry.
and ion accelerators and void shields and all this stuff. And that is generally what the Tau's all about. But you're probably thinking, but Bricky, this doesn't sound that evil. This doesn't sound very grim, dark Warhammer. And you'd be right. The Tau Empire really don't have that much of a horrifying, grim, dark style like everybody else. They're much more younger, new age thing. In fact, they're probably a lot less evil and a lot even better than they are now back in the day because they liked having like that good guy faction. But a lot of us who really like the dark, depressing style of Warhammer didn't really like it that much. So, see, the Tau get a lot
Whoa.
of hate, and a lot of that hate isn't necessarily
thing in the top
unjustified.
left.
It's mainly from a tabletop perspective, but as you can see from all the visuals I've shown you recently, they don't really fit in the 40K universe very well. They lack that super dark, dramatic, kind of high gothic level the Imperium has. They don't have the weird kind of like grungy stuff that Chaos or say the Orcs do. And the Necrons and the Eldar have their own specific style as well. The Tau really do look like something out of Gundam. And while it isn't necessarily
I'm definitely getting those vibes.
it does definitely not fit too well. There's that. There's also the tabletop problem. In tabletop, Tau are horrible at melee combat, but exceptionally good at range combat.
Yeah.
So they blast everyone from
If you're going to have that many
away,
weapons, you're going to be really good at it.
Rules to make it so that it's nearly impossible for you to get into melee combat. So it basically just forces you to bottleneck the game into one specific gameplay style, which
Shoot
is gun to
everything.
gun. And if you're doing gun to gun, they're going to win every
Damn,
time.
look at those
because of the
missiles.
Tau, and the Tau are really damn good at shooting.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that make the Tau.
The armor
generally
does
rather
look super
hated, and
sleek,
a lot of
though.
different reasons for that, both from style and such. But this is actually one of the things I wanted to end this video with, is that the Tau, while they have their issues, you should not be discouraged from playing them. I'll make plenty of Tau weeaboo jokes, of course I will, but it's all generally in good fun. Anyone who legitimately doesn't want you to play a faction is an idiot, and you shouldn't be giving them the time
Just play
of
the
day.
faction that you want.
Pick what you think is cool
Yeah.
and what you
The rule of cool.
like. In Warhammer, especially now, factions get better and they get worse. They grow and then they fall. You should only be playing what you think is cool.
Yeah.
You like the look, you like the models. If you're talking tabletop,
spending that much
is
money
what you
on
should
them.
be going for every time is what you think is badass, because things change all the time. But the universe of Warhammer has so much going for it. Every faction has something interesting. Every character has a story, and there's a million stories to be told. The universe is vast and exciting, and while it is dark, depressing, and horrible, that is the damn charm. And out of everything I've told you in these two videos, if anything you could take away is the reason why so many of us are so into this series and why we like it so much. Because with so much variety, such an expansive universe, and so much that can be done, you can find yourself having a pretty great time. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for watching this video. I hope it has been informative to you.
It
If
has.
you'd like to see more of me, Bricky,
Yes.
twitch.tv/Bricky for my streams. You
Mm-hmm.
have my merchandise site, in which I was wearing all of my merch, but underneath this, because I had to wear this so it wasn't black or white for the green screen, which is a little unfortunate, but it's fine. If you'd like to see merch, it is in the description. Also, if you'd like to support me on my Patreon page at patreon.com/Bricky for more videos like this, then that would also be wonderful. So Twitch, merch, Patreon, anything if you want to support, that would be fantastic. I'd appreciate it. If not, I'm just stoked you got all the way to the end of the video, and that's
Yeah.
enough for me. So
You're welcome.
I'm going to be having some more content like this out in the future. Thank you so much for sticking around this long and being with me through this pretty rough time. That's, I think, all I got. Also,
Cool.
before I go, let me leave you with my favorite Warhammer quote.
Yeah.
He who scoffs at the power of the lasgun has never ran through a field of 1,000 of them.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Well, there we go. That's the last of Bricky's Every Faction in Warhammer 40k. Oh, it's a really good series. He did a really good job of explaining everything, and I had a real good time watching it all. I'm glad everyone stuck around. If you're still here, yeah, let us know what your favourite faction is and why. And yeah, if you have any other videos you want me to watch, anything from Bricky or any other content creator, I'm quite happy to give them a look and making more videos. But yeah, that's it for this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.